Hello, and welcome to this Gobble Gobble edition of the Purple Journal podcast. I am your host, Joe Johnson, owner of purplePTSD.com and VikingsTerritory.com. Here with... What was that?
Go ahead.
Oh.
I was going to say, you're going to pardon any turkeys today?
I was actually considering that as a title, but I don't think anyone deserves to be off the hook for that game in Chicago. Huh? That's pretty good. That's Joe Oberle. He is the editor of Purple PTSD Vikings Territory and a writer for the Sports Post. How you doing, man? You looking forward to tomorrow?
Yeah. First game in 2 years I don't have to, or first time Thanksgiving in 2 years I don't have to work during the game, during Thanksgiving dinner.
Yeah.
I sit in Red Wing and sit there in the chair and I'm sitting there typing away and people say, "Oh, we're eating." I said, "Yeah, well, I'm working." So.
And that's why you're the editor.
Right.
Luke Braun is also here.
Hello.
What's happening, man?
Nothing much. Basically running out of here after this show and catching a flight to New York for Thanksgiving.
Nice.
Why are you going to New York?
Girlfriend's family.
Oh, that's what I figured. That's awesome.
All right, jet setter. He's got a love with him out in L.A. He's got his love's parents in New York, and he's got his Vikings love here in Minnesota. What a guy.
Bi-coastal, but his heart is in the true north. Luke writes for Purple PTSD and Vikings Territory, and also is on the Pocket Protectors podcast. The first thing, as the hyperbolic emotional disaster
Dow Jones.
of pretty much of this podcast, of the websites, of life in general, I wanted to just get your guys' take on where you believe the Vikings are and whether or not you believe some of the stuff that's being written and talked about is maybe a little bit too much. I saw something from, I think it was on the Viking Age earlier that stood out to me, saying that the Vikings are no longer a Super Bowl contender. That's actually, I think it was written by Adam Patrick, who is someone who contributes to a show on our Purple Territory radio network. And personally, I obviously am very up and down. I quit the live chat against the Bears around halftime. I couldn't take it anymore. So I don't really have a leg to stand on. But at the same time, I feel like, okay, if not for a few bad turnovers, the Vikings played well against all these contending teams, quote unquote. Then I look at the offensive line and what role they may have had in those turnovers, and that freaks me out a little bit. But maybe I'm just hoping against hope that I don't have to make that conclusion yet. And I'll kick it to Joe to see what your thoughts are on the state of the team. Are we in I've seen some really apocalyptic stuff, as I said to Chad Greenway on Tuesday.
Wait, I'm sorry, that's the wrong holiday. I can't go there. First of all, who makes the Vikings a Super Bowl contender? Nothing makes them a Super Bowl contender just because they were in the NFC Championship game last year. Go talk to the Jacksonville Jaguars. We're on a 6-game losing streak. The Vikings are a game and a half out of first place in their division. If the season ended today, they're the 6th seed in the playoff pool in the NFC. It doesn't guarantee they're going to get there, but it doesn't guarantee they're not. And all you have to do is get in the tournament to become a Super Bowl contender. Now, granted, it would be nice to play some of these really hot teams at home, but to give yourself a better chance. But the Vikings have a good defense. They had a bad game. They were defense was ascending. The quarterback took a step back from the way he's been playing all year. This stuff happens. There's no running game. There's certainly a lot of things you can point your finger at and say, "Hey, man, these guys don't look like world beaters anymore." But if you watch the NFL from year to year, You just got to get, win enough games to keep yourself in the conversation, and then in December get hot at the right time, and you're just as much a contender as anybody else. So I'm not panicking yet. If that's what your question is.
Yeah, I think maybe people have adjusted their evaluations of the Vikings closer to the truth. I think people who were too high on them maybe came down. People who thought they would be this 14-2 juggernaut. They weren't, and I think I said this over the offseason, the 13-3 2017 team wasn't actually 13-3 quality. They just had a couple bounces go their way and, won a few games that ended up, they won more games than I guess the quality of the team would predict, which is awesome, and that was really fun. But at the same time, they have all the talent in the world, right? They've got 1 million defensive superstars. They have 2 superstar wide receivers. They have all the talent in the world. If you get in the dance, if you get in the playoffs, they can challenge anyone. I still really believe that. I don't know if they can beat anyone, but I think they can give anyone a run for their money.
Absolutely.
And, teams like that, if you get hot in December, you can try to make a run. I'm not going to pick them to win the Super Bowl, but saying it's outside of the realm of possibility or whatever is really weird. They, in terms of their playoff odds, this game didn't sink them. It was a very big blow to their division odds, which is why it was such a huge game, why it got flexed. But this Packers game and then the Seahawks game in a few weeks, those two are the 2 games that are really going to determine whether or not they get a wild card spot.
Not only that.
Season's a long way from over. There's a lot of football yet to be played. There are a lot of issues with that game, and I'm sure we'll get into it, that bother me from a process standpoint. But the result itself isn't all that bad.
Trubisky may not even play on Thursday. He's doubtful right now to play for the Bears.
Thanks to a very questionable Harrison Smith hit that ended up in a key 15-yard penalty.
Yeah.
That allowed them to get down the field, and that late hit that set them up to ice it with a field goal was that Matt Nagy said in a presser today that.
What is it, a concussion?
No, it's a
shoulder.
Ooh.
So, yikes.
Ooh.
That's my point is you got to let the season play out a little bit more than this before you don't jump on at the beginning and say they're going to the Super Bowl just because of last year, because everyone and their brother's dog will tell you it's a different team. And you don't go diving off just because they lost a game in Chicago against a very decent, very good team.
Yeah, they're an excellent team.
God dang. So I just don't, I can't go there. And I could hear in your voice, Joe, when we just told you about Trubisky, all of a sudden the Dow Jones Industrial.
Yeah. Hey, I might buy me some more Bitcoins or Vikings coins. No, and I feel the same way. I mean, I really am not as down on the team as other people, surprisingly. I feel like, and like I said, maybe I just don't emotionally want to prepare myself to cover a team 12 hours a day that I don't believe still has a shot. I've said a few times on the show that maybe they have to be a wild card team and fight their way and play all of those games. Maybe that will be the key. I guess my question or my concern is that, I know Cousins said before the Bears game his number one priority was not turning the ball over. And he said a lot of the right things. I don't know if you guys caught that GQ article that said Kirk Cousins may never get it from a Vikings fan who lived in the D.C. area. That was pretty brutal about Cousins. Basically told him to go F himself because Cousins tried to spin the Bears game into a positive, like a humbling learning moment, when it was basically, he, as opposed to taking the blame outright, he said, well, I learned from it. And
he must have read that article because he came out at the press conference today and said, after the third question on turnovers, he said, well, if that's what we're going to talk about here, and rather than break it down and talk about miscommunication, which Brent Zimmer called it, or talk about put the blame on somebody else, he flat out said, those two are on me. So I whatever this guy said, the heck with him. I don't have any problem with the way Cousins, manufactures in his brain, either justifies it so he can go back and play, or says it to the media, or what he says. He knows. He's a smart guy. He knows if he made a bad throw, and he said it right up after the game, the pick six. He saw the defender. He thought he misread what the defender was going, the safety was going to squat or something. He thought, and he came over and jumped the route. He misread it, so he threw it to the wrong spot. It was the wrong spot in the first place, with three guys circling around Treadwell. But that's beside the point. So he owns it. He knows it. He's going to learn from it. He's not going to sit here and wallow on it. But these guys sit here and say, "Oh my God, what did I do wrong?" If they do that, they're done. The team is done, and everything else is done. So, whatever, Deadspin or whoever wrote that, settle down.
I can add context to the pick. The pick six is the one you're talking about, right? That was triple coverage.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think Kirk said something to this effect immediately after the game, but he's always going to be a little coy about it. But what happened there was he read cover two, which is kind of what it was. Meaning too deep. The two safeties were deep, and Treadwell was running effectively a corner route, a slightly modified corner route, which is supposed to be a cover two beater. Corner routes are good against that coverage, so he decided to throw it. But Kyle Fuller, the corner, who on most cover two, the reason that corner routes are good against cover two is that they're actually supposed to stress Kyle Fuller. So basically, he had to choose between covering Diggs underneath or covering Treadwell deep. And he kind of was indecisive about it. He backpedaled really far back, and then broke towards Stephon Diggs when he realized that Diggs wasn't going to break upfield. But because he had backpedaled so far back, it meant that Kirk Cousins had to kind of place the ball further inside and deeper than he wanted to. I think he would have wanted to fire it toward the sideline, but Kyle Fuller was taking that window away. And what Cousins should have done is just realize that means the throw isn't there, pull it back and throw it to Diggs or Dalvin Cook, both of whom were wide open in the flat and probably had a first down, maybe more.
Yeah. And Zimmer said something about that too, saying that he for whatever reason doesn't want to just take what he can get. He wants to go for maybe a larger play, and I wonder, my question was going to be if that's going to change moving forward.
No, it's always been him. And I think they knew that when they acquired him, and they decided, all right, we want a guy that's going to fire these into tight windows and give us a chance, a la the end of the Packers game. This is the example that you always have to bring up. That's what they kind of signed up for. But yeah, he just shouldn't have fired that one. He tried to place it between Kyle Fuller and Eddie Jackson, and that gave Eddie Jackson more of a chance on the ball than
Treadwell.
He really ever should have, and really, there's nothing else Treadwell could have really done, because that ball, he had no chance at the ball. He didn't. The route was fine. It was just a ball he never should have fired.
Let me ask you, you guys might have watched the game back. I did not, but I remember seeing the replay, and I'm probably off base here because you probably just said it, but it seemed like, if you're seeing this ball going short, because Treadwell was turned around and looked at it. Make a break back at it. Try to knock down, break up a potential interception, or else, do anything to. But he just kind of drifted off out of bounds and said, "That one's not coming to me." And I just God dang it.
Yeah.
Get in there and at least try to break up a potential interception, because as soon as you're a wide receiver, your job can go from offense to defense in an instant. And at least make a move. It's almost like the whole, I don't know. I might be off base. I don't know.
No, you have to look at it again.
I rewatched it.
I don't know if he was led too much.
Okay.
I don't know. I'd have to look at it again to see if he really pulled up on the route, because that would be crazy. He was being targeted. It's not like the ball was thrown way over his head or anything, but it led him too much, because Kirk, instead of pulling the ball back, was trying to adjust to this weird cover 2 / cover 3, all these factors. And it was just it resulted in a poorly placed ball. I don't actually know. I'd have to look at it again to see if Treadwell actually let up on the ball or gave up Mike Wallace
It did
style.
feel like he wasn't anywhere near it, though.
Yeah. And it's zone. If it were a man, it'd be different.
Yeah.
I'm not let up on the route or anything like that. He just, to me, and it could, like I said, I didn't watch it enough times. It just looked like he saw that it wasn't going to come to him, and then he just kind of he slowed his roll out of bounds. And
I rewatch
and knock into somebody.
Yeah, I rewatch Vikings losses like Clockwork Orange with my eyes peeled back in my bedroom, and it did feel that like there was a little bit of that, like Luke said though. Maybe I'm thinking it should have been a man, so he should have been right there as opposed to a zone. But it just felt like the eye test was initially, holy crap, where was that ball going? There was nobody even close to it, and it ended up killing him. I think the statistic is that Cousins has the most seasons with 2 pick sixes consecutively in the league. Like, he's been throwing 2 pick sixes for 4 or 5 years now. No one else is even close.
Has he been doing that ever since the Big Ten? Sorry.
It's who he is. It's who he is. I will say the second one, I don't know. He probably took responsibility because that's what you have to say in the media. But I highly doubt, or the first one, the end of halftime one, didn't feel like his fault at all, the interception, because he was clearly expecting Kyle Rudolph to run a seam route, whether it was a double move or just a straight seam route. I can't quite tell, but Kyle Rudolph sat down on an 11-yard curl, but there was 25 seconds left and they had no timeouts. An 11-yard curl is not. I have no idea why he would be running that route in that situation. So I kind of feel like Kyle Rudolph ran the wrong route.
Zimmer said he did.
I feel like that's such an unbelievable problem to have. It's Thanksgiving. These are still July problems. How in the world is this professional NFL team? You still can't get 11 players to run the same play at the same time. I said earlier in the show, the result of the game doesn't bother me too much. We're within a score. It's a tough division game on the road, whatever. But the process that led us there is still, this team has no idea what sport they're playing. It's unbelievably inexcusable. Run the damn route.
You said something similar last week, and then a week before that, or 2 weeks before that these are preseason problems. And I wonder where that. We talked about this on Tuesday. The Michelle Tafoya talking to Zimmer, and some of the stuff he said, whether it was 100% true or not, but it was kind of really? You're going into halftime thinking about that why not game plan for it? Chipping Khalil Mack, or I forget what the other one was, but it was kind of
a spy on.
Yes. We might put a spy on Trubisky.
Show last week.
Yeah.
It's not very encouraging that I'm sitting on my couch figuring out things that it took a half of getting walloped for Mike Zimmer to figure out.
Yeah, and the sad thing is that they worked really well.
Clearly, obviously, because this isn't rocket science.
Yeah,
he's the running quarterback, spying. It works.
I wonder if that's with Barr being out, if that had something to do with it. But we can talk about that a little bit. The tale of two halves. The misdirection plays seem to be freaking out the defense a little bit to start the game. Collinsworth was about to have a freaking orgasm about it. It was getting a little tired of listening to that, but it's the defense did well.
It would be cool to watch. It would be cool to watch as a neutral fan. I will say that Eric Wilson had a lot of trouble reading those plays and kind of he did not display the same freakish range that Anthony Barr has. Barr will be able to fit in a gap way to the outside a lot easier than Eric Wilson can, and that's why Anthony Barr went 9th overall. So he was definitely very sorely missed, especially in the beginning of the game.
Yeah, I thought you meant as a neutral fan it would be fun to watch Collinsworth have an orgasm. I was going to say, finally, somebody speaks my language. It's just aggravating because I do feel like that they made the adjustments and they could have won that game. I mean, without the pick six, it was one touchdown and a couple field goals. It's a completely winnable game, and it's those sort of things that do determine whether or not you make the playoffs and how far you go. And I mean, I'll kick it back to you again, Luke. What do you feel just about the defense at this point. I mean, everyone was talking about how they're getting it together, so on and so forth. I mean,
yeah, they made the adjustment, and from there they managed a pretty good result, right? They gave up, I guess you could credit them with 19 of the 25 points because the pick six wasn't theirs, but they did give up the 2-point conversions. So you could say they gave up 19 points on the road, primetime. But it's the process that really, really bothers me. It's the fact that, like, these extremely easy things. I mean, go back to the Bills game. All the Bills run is post wheel. It's like a huge, huge portion of their playbook, and the Vikings were not prepared for post wheel. Like, these problems, even though, like, the result is ultimately reasonable with giving up 19 points on the road, the fact that we did it that way is really, really, really bothersome. And it just shows, like, this just isn't a team that is thinking on the same level as everybody else. You just have to be smarter on Sundays. And the most frustrating thing about it is that they can figure it out at any point. And that's why I say, if they get in the playoffs, say they figure it out in week 15, something clicks and they start playing, together like they did in 2017 again, they win out, they sneak into the playoffs, they could totally make a run. Because at that point, if that clicks, this team is insane. The defense goes back to being unreal. But nothing indicates that they're going to figure it out.
Well, they had 2 weeks to do it.
Exactly. They had 2 weeks to do it, and they couldn't figure out that Mitch Trubisky can't beat you in the air, give up a cover guy to spy. It took them until about midway through the second quarter of getting run up and down the field, and I think if it weren't for one Anthony Harris interception, it could have been a lot worse.
Yeah.
Luke, let me interject there just a second. I mean, they did figure it out for the second half, so they obviously then, they knew about that coming in, so they can quick make this an adjustment. And for me,
why'd they have to be bad for a half first?
That's what I'm saying. The question for me is, why didn't they do what you just said? He can't beat you through the air, give up a defender, and spy on him. Why didn't they start out that way? That's the question that should be answered, and I don't understand it.
Has anybody asked that you've seen, Joe, or anything near it?
I have not seen that asked, and I think everybody wanted to keep their press passes for the remainder of the year. So.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding. I don't understand it either. It is a question that should be asked because, we all talked about it last week. We said here on the show they got to put a spy on him. Everybody knows it. I mean, he's the second at the time. He was the second best runner, and he's shaky with his arm. So that's the perfect scenario for doing that. Now, the other problem they had too was Tariq Cohen. They could not tackle that guy for the life of him. He obviously is very talented and stuff, but they did not have a way to really slow him down. As soon as he was always making the first, second people miss. So I don't know. These are things they knew coming in, and I don't know why they weren't better prepared.
And their the strength of the defense being the third down defense seemed to be non-existent in the first half as well. I mean, they were giving up first downs left and right. Long ones, too. I mean, I remember saying in the game chat, this is where they want them, 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9. I think their average going into the game was 3rd and 9, which is why they were 75% of the time successful. And it just wasn't clicking. And then you throw the penalties. I don't know how you guys felt about some of those calls.
Are they overthinking things in that they think, okay, this is what we know we might have to do, so we'll bring – I'm sorry, I'm still back on the last thing.
No, yeah, that's a good question.
And then, if we need it, and then, they don't put it until after – I don't understand it, because Zimmer had said he's got all these plays they're going to throw at us. So maybe they're expecting him not to run because that's what everybody's – I don't know.
Yeah. No, because you have to think, and I go back to what you said a couple weeks ago, Joe, and I forget what the argument was. But you had said, we don't. The team has a lot more information than we do, and to imply that we know something they don't isn't probably the best way to go. And so I think maybe you would want to hope that they said, okay, this is what they expect us to do, so let's do something different.
Right.
It seems like whenever that is the case, that negative things happen. I know Zimmer said something on the other side of the ball. That the offensive playbook, there's too much volume, and that every week they add new plays, and maybe they need to limit the amount of plays that they're inserting and simplify the offensive side. Maybe that'll help Cousins a little bit. So he spoke about it on that side of the ball, but I gotta hope that's the why, because Zimmer is thought of the way he's thought of around the league. I was listening to some NFL show on Sirius Radio driving around with my dad, and the guy called in. He was a Bengals fan, and this was after the game, and he was talking about how they should have kept Zimmer. That should have been the plan. And I kind of thought, well, hey, look at that guy still is bullish on Zimmer, even though they haven't been playing that well. And he has that reputation for a reason. So, I'm just hoping that's what it is, because if it's the other thing, then it's really disconcerting above and beyond any personnel issues they might have on the offensive line.
Maybe he did tell him to do that at the beginning of the game, and they didn't listen or they didn't care. Just kidding, Mike Zimmer. Just kidding.
Well,
I've been pushing back all week on roster criticism. I think this is a championship caliber roster, and if they're smart on game day, they can beat anyone. And it's just a matter of finding out how to be smart and not outthinking themselves by introducing way too many plays that, now how many passes on Sunday night were there that just were sailed to no one because someone ran the wrong route?
Yeah.
These guys are confused, and I think if you can figure out what that is, either dialing it back and reducing the volume, which kind of sucks because, before the game, Mike Zimmer even said, that's why Matt Nagy is good, because he has you can't scout all his plays, he has too many. But, if they can figure out a way to be smart on game day, they can beat anyone.
Luke and Joe, do you think that DiFilippo is trying to audition, and that he wants? He has the run to run that offense, because Zimmer wouldn't be saying that thing about volume unless he said, have less plays. He was out there. That's kind of a criticism of DiFilippo, and maybe he's just got too much for these guys, as you just said, that are running the wrong routes because there's too much in their head and there's too much volume. And you think that he's out there, wants to throw all this scheme out there so someone will offer him a head coaching job next year? I don't know.
Well, I don't think it's going very well. The Vikings read it with a lot of fire DiFilippo stuff. The Vikings, I think I pulled that stat where it said the Vikings have once in the last 25 years been held under 25 yards rushing, and they've done that twice so far this season. I don't know what the game plan was. I know we talked about perhaps getting rid of the ball quickly, a la Breeze, because of the combo of Hicks and Mack, and I think Cousins held on to the ball for a half second longer than he typically does, but he wasn't throwing it down the field. He had no throws over 15 or 16 yards, and so a lot of, those, putting that all together, it just seems like a mess, to be honest. I don't want to apologize for Cousins and the mistakes that he's making, but I don't know, yeah, on paper these guys, I get down, I think about the argument in the offseason was who has the better roster, the Rams or the Vikings, and a lot of people were saying the Vikings, and it's just all about execution, and it doesn't seem to be working very well, and that there's a little bit of hope that they'll figure it out, but at this point in the season, having 1.2.5 yards per rushing attempt is just bad.
Yeah, they need to. Right now the most frequent gap that they've run is the A gap, which means that they're running behind Pat Elflein, who is currently the worst run blocker on the line, and they've done that the most frequently. They need to seriously go back to the drawing board with their run game and recalibrate who they trust. And it makes sense because, they probably have a really high opinion of Elflein, and as a pass blocker, he's been fine. But as a run blocker, he's been really bad. And they continue to trust him, and it feels like Sunday night was this moment where you saw one team trying to leverage their worst players and put all the pressure on the shoulders of their worst players, while allowing the other team to do the exact opposite and allowing the other team to, define the game with their best defensive player in Khalil Mack and the best thing their quarterback does and run around. And they were letting the Bears do everything they did well, while we were forcing ourselves to not to do the things we do poorly, like run up the gut and leverage Riley Reif on Khalil Mack, which is obviously a matchup that you're going to lose. Like, letting him be one-on-one, it just feels like they don't know what they're good at, which is amazing. Like, you've been doing this since it was hot outside. Like,
and what, Tom Compton had a 6.8 grade on Pro Football Focus?
Yeah.
Like, that's...
His pass blocking grades are hilarious. It's like 75, 80, 78, 77, 4.9.
Yeah.
It's like he's like a really solid pass blocker, and then he has the Rams game and this game where he just cratered.
Was this his came back from injury, so we cut him a little slack?
Yeah,
that might have had something to do with it. And I think Reef was playing hurt a little bit too.
And they replaced him
he's still
at
on the
some
injury
point,
report.
right? With
They did?
According to
Compton.
Compton.
Compton came in.
The positive is Brian O'Neill had a great game. One pressure given up and like a pretty good grade, I guess.
He keeps stringing these together. He's just a starting quality right tackle. This rules.
Yeah, I keep thinking 3-year plan. And I said this to you, Joe, but a few years ago when with Aaron Rodgers and Matthew Stafford, it was like, okay, we need to get a lot of help in the defensive backfield, and they've done that. And now I'm thinking, okay, maybe this will wake them up to invest some either more money in free agency or a first-round pick or 2 first-round picks on the offensive line, because Khalil Mack and Hicks aren't going anywhere, and they are very, very good at football. And I wanted to, I guess that's, I hate to highlight a team that just beat us, and so I would never do this with the Packers, but I wanted to ask you guys, from a perspective of maybe technique and also from a historical standpoint, Joe, with like maybe comparing Mac to like a Reggie White or someone like that, just why he's good, and if he was everything that we were. I guess my question last week was like, how afraid should I be? I think he answered that question loudly, and so I'll kick it to you first, Luke, if you wanted to just talk about like Mac and like why he's so freaking good and able to bowl people over backwards.
I would probably not put him with Reggie White. Reggie White and like Lawrence Taylor, those guys are kind of in a league of their own. But I mean, he's like clearly one of the premier, best players in football right now at any position. He has there's a clip that the broadcast highlighted that went pretty viral of Mac just putting Riley Reef like on his back.
Yeah.
And that was a really good long arm rush. Basically, they teach you one arm is longer than two. Like if you stick both hands out in front of you and then see how your reach is, and then see like how much you can reach with one arm, you can like you're longer. So if you get one arm in on the middle of a guy's chest, he can't reach you with 2 hands, and basically you can push him wherever you want because he can't push back. And that's essentially what that was. The thing is, you have to then like move a 320-pound man with one arm, and the fact that he could do that is also a testament to this like crazy athleticism. I mean, in a draft where Anthony Barr, this freakish athlete, went 9th overall, Khalil Mack went before him. I think that should tell you kind of what to expect. That should tell you, like what makes him good. He has all of that potential, and he had already put it together by the time he hit the NFL.
Yeah, he's a beast. And I wonder how he would fit in the live chat we threw out. I was like, man, it would have been nice if the Vikings traded for him, gave up Barr and a draft pick or something. And I know they run a completely different. They run a 4-3, and he, basically lines up as a defensive end. But I don't really have a question. I'm just saying it would have been nice to not let him go to Chicago in any way, shape, or form, I guess.
And Luke was right in his assessment of Reggie White and that those kind of guys being a league of their own. But this trade is just as seismic as that one for the Packers. And granted, Packers were in the spot where they needed one more player to make them a Super Bowl team, and he do that. But I'm not going to say the Bears are there yet, but they're not far away, to be contending in the playoffs if Trubisky improves and keeps going. And this is going to be looked at as one of those kinds of trades because this guy is so disruptive. It's incredible what the plays he blows up. I mean, when he threw what's his name, Reef like a rag doll. That's reminiscent of what Reggie White used to do. He would go in, swat a guy to the side with one arm, and just go and pummel a quarterback. And that play right there kind of reminded me of it.
So I did put this on the agenda.
I'll say this about it.
Okay.
Despite all of the this like scary, oh my God, they're so good and they're so young, and and that like this bright future for the Bears and the kind of personnel moves that they've made, which have been excellent. The Vikings could have comfortably taken that game if everyone ran the right route and everyone did the right thing if everyone just had done the right assignment, regardless of how well they executed it, if they just didn't do the wrong crap. And if you stopped committing penalties after the whistle. If you could do just those two things, I think you take that game comfortably. But they couldn't, and that's what makes them mediocre right now.
So I was going to... Yeah, exactly. And, I mean...
Just do those things.
The Bills game was... the team might have been on autopilot, at least one player.
There was something else. They can play with any team in the league. I mean, they can play at the Rams, and the Rams defense isn't so god awful great, even so they added people to it. It's yardage wise anyway, they're the middle of the pack. So they can play with these teams. But Luke's right. And Zimmer preaches it every week. Execute, care of the ball, and cut down the mistakes, which is code word for penalties. Quit making oh my goodness, Eric Kendricks, why? I kind of almost got Harrison Smith, but that's another why. Why are you doing this? Well,
that was actually my next question. It's obvious where most people would say the fault lies when you have undisciplined plays, maybe good players that aren't either on the same page or where they're supposed to be for any number of reasons, whether it's malaise, or whether it's they're just too overwhelmed with the complexity of the offense. But if you had to blame somebody, who do you... I think I saw a quote from Zimmer where he was explaining, I guess bad things just happen. He said, Thielen is always great holding on to the ball, but when he goes down into the red zone, he fumbles. He was talking about that compared to the Dalvin Cook fumble, and his frustration. And I guess that just happens, but it seems to be happening to us more. I mean, that is an answer, and it isn't.
So it is. I mean, stuff happens, but you've got to be good enough to be able to overcome that. You have to. When you're given 3 turnovers, you have to score more than 6 points off.
Yeah.
You have to not give up pick sixes. You have to make a mistake, then you better goddamn run down the field after the ball's picked off in front of you, Treadwell, and tackle the damn guy.
Well, here's a better way to
page.
Okay.
If you go to my Twitter page and watch the all 22 of that one, you're going to be mad at Diggs for the same reason.
Seriously?
Same
he
play?
He stood exactly still, and he was the last line of defense. He didn't take an angle at all. He just let it come to him and let the guy run around him.
He was shorter than Treadwell was. That's right. How did Treadwell look?
Not sure, but you can find it on my Twitter page if you scroll down enough. I posted.
So you have that. 22. You have
a digital native. Sorry, Joe. You can.
So you have that. Then you have those penalties by not by your leaders. You could argue. Kendricks and Harrison Smith. I mean, that to me shows frustration, and I wonder if they're frustrated that they're losing. They're frustrated. Maybe they were mad about that call on Wilson, which was kind of a BS call. Or are they mad at the coaches? Where do you think that stems from?
Both of those penalties were just they were just, you played too long after the whistle, right? They were both because the contact was late. Eric Kendricks' was a little out of bounds. I thought that one is that's a hard one to prevent. You just have to have better sideline awareness. And Harrison Smith, I think, was trying to strip the ball. He was trying to punch the ball, and that's why he went low like that. But again, that's just a thing where you have to have better awareness than that. So I don't know if those are emotional penalties. The Eric Wilson one looked like he kind of flung the guy's towel back to him.
Yeah.
After the game, he was like, I was just giving him his towel back. That again is something that you just have to understand that looks a lot worse. To a referee.
They threw the flag almost at the same time as he threw the towel, as Collinsworth pointed out. So I think it was too. He was kind of they were chattering back and forth, but I still don't think it was a penalty.
Yeah, I think they're just getting too wrapped up in like trying to make a huge play to save the game or whatever, and you just have to like keep your faculties about you. Remember where the sideline is. Remember that when it's the quarterback, you can't hit him after he's slid. Like, it wasn't a good slide, but it was enough of a slide. I've seen people say like, "Oh, he slid head first. He gave up his production." No, he didn't. He had given himself up. He was all the way on the ground. Jump over him.
And before we get into the Packers, I wanted to just point out Anthony Harris's game. I think there was either a tweet or an article that I pulled up right before the show started that said the Vikings have the best safety in the NFL, and then it's like a clickbait thing. It's like, but it's not who you think it is. Just based on his score. I know it's dumb because it's the sample size is like 1% of what Harrison Smith is doing play in and play out, but he's earned his spot, I believe. Not too much of a stretch, but he's playing really, really well.
What's his name? Zendejo didn't practice today either.
Didn't he?
No, just to go back, circle back real quick. I'm being a little harsh on Treadwell, but not much. He should have. The pick happened right in front of him, and it took him a long while to react. But anyway,
Did you just watch it?
Yeah, I'm watching it right now.
Okay.
I got skills. I got mad internet skills.
Yeah, what do you think? How he's playing, Anthony Harris, Mr. Brown?
I mean, yeah, I've been on this for a few weeks now. I'm pretty sure PFF has him graded as the top safety
in the NFL
football right now.
That's what it is. It's not the best on the team. You're right.
Right, which obviously that is not accounting for priors, right? That's not accounting for. That's literally just if time started this season, he would be playing the best, which is worth a lot. But obviously, it's not like you wouldn't take him over like Earl Thomas because Earl Thomas did it for 6 years. We all understand that. It's okay. But he's been incredible. He plays mostly free safety. He's basically the kind of guy that we've always been begging for. Of like, we want him to be able to play that center field role so that Harrison Smith can roam all over the field and do whatever he wants. But because he's put on a bunch of weight in the last couple of years, and he's actually like really good at run support from the box, he can line up in the box. And if you decide, all right, we want Harrison Smith back in coverage and playing deep, which sometimes you do want that, Anthony Harris can still roll up into the box. You can still kind of roll coverages the way you used to, which was always the problem with getting like a pure center fielder like an Earl Thomas type, was that if you rolled that person into the box and then they aren't good in the box, you're putting yourself at a disadvantage and you can't do some of the pre-snap stuff that Mike Zimmer likes to do. Anthony Harris is good enough against the run where you can do that, and I think that's kind of unlocked this awesome potential that he always had from Virginia. He was always a really good, rangy, read the quarterback, figure out where the ball is going to be and break on it kind of player, but he was never good enough at the other facets of safety play to be trusted in a system where safeties are kind of asked to do everything. And now that he's kind of gotten to that point, I think it's really clear that like he might be outplaying. I mean, he is outplaying what Zendejo had been able to do, which I would defend and say that it was pretty good. And Anthony Harris is just outplaying that right now. And you're coming up on an off season where you're basically in cap hell. I think we kind of all see what the tea leaves are telling us.
What the heck switched with him? Because we've been calling for Zendejo or someone to replace him for years, and Harris has been around for maybe 3 years now. And
he had to put on like 30 pounds or something, and he had to learn run defense from scratch.
Okay. He's still really skinny too.
Yeah, I mean that's why he went undrafted, because he was a very one-dimensional player, and this is another like notch in Jerry Gray's belt that this guy just learned a lot of facets of safety play that he didn't touch at all at Virginia.
And he played for the Titans, right?
Anthony Harris?
Yeah. I thought he played for
Packers, wasn't he? He was a Packer.
Oh, who am I thinking of?
He's been a Viking for... You might be thinking of Michael Griffin, who didn't make the team a couple years ago. That was the last Titans safety we got.
Really? Wow.
No, Anthony Harris was an undrafted free agent in 2015. He's been with the team his whole NFL career.
I've been confusing him with that free agency Titans safety. You're right.
Yeah, Michael Griffin was he was a Titan for like 12 years. He was like old and washed, and they cut him to get rid of his contract. And then he came here and like didn't make the team.
Oh wow, you probably just saved me from like a huge embarrassing moment at some point. I'll be at some game and the guy's got to be at least 60 years old. How does he keep doing it? Yikes!
This is live, Joe. So he may be too late to save you.
Nope. I'll pretend. I'll make up some sort of narrative.
People who listen to this show are used to us embarrassing ourselves.
Oh, big time. Totally.
I'm planning to do that before the show is over. So.
The Packers. It is. I just want to say it is amazing how quickly things can change. I know that a lot of the stuff that I've seen people that's been kind of boiling and stuff they were mad about earlier in the season, so it didn't just flip 180 overnight. But it's amazing how little, not importance, but just how little people seem psyched up about this Packers game on Sunday, as compared to the typical build-up to those games. And I want to put out the cliche that I think Joe hates the most, which is that's another must-win game.
Yeah,
but it is.
Me and Kirk Cousins, we both hate that.
But yeah, it is obviously.
Absolutely. It's funny, Joe, just how you frame the question. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but that's kind of what I wrote about for my preview piece. Is like this does not feel like your typical Packers Vikings week. Even though we're separated by half a game, tied each other last time we played. There's so much on the line here. There's keeping pace with the Bears. There's the tiebreaker. There's bragging rights in this rivalry, but it does not feel because the Packers aren't the same team that they have been. They're still right there. I mean, if they beat the Vikings on Sunday, they'll jump ahead of them, and suddenly the Vikings can go past two teams with no more games against the Packers. So it's there should be this by Sunday. There should be to a feverish pitch. It has to be because it is a huge game. It is a must win. They're not done if they lose, but they're on life support if you ask me. Because they're not going to go with any confidence on the road into New England and Seattle. If they don't win this game at home, that would mean two division game losses in a row to your big rivals, and then you got to go to New England and Seattle. Now that doesn't look very good. So yeah, I would say it's a must-win.
They're the worst version of themselves that we've seen in quite some time. There's a great Brett Coleman video on it from last week about just the problems that they're facing that he posted like right before the Seahawks Thursday night game, where you saw all of those problems show up. So to lose to that team at home would definitely, in my opinion, be a kiss of death. Not because it wouldn't mathematically eliminate you. You could still go upset the Patriots and beat the Seahawks and sneak into the wild card or do something weird. But it would just kind of be a signal that this team just isn't worth a playoff spot.
Big time.
You gotta take this one.
It isn't the same as the Bears game by any stretch. They're the most beatable version of the Packers we've seen, especially at this time in the season. I know that they're a different team than when we played them earlier in the season. Rodgers' knee is at least freshly injured. They finally put in, to Joe's delight, Donald is at running back, who's, I think, been helping your fantasy team quite a bit.
Oh, Aaron Jones,
there you go. Who am I thinking of? Aaron Donald? Who's that?
The Rams defensive tackle that's a superstar?
Yeah. That's probably it.
Well, this is where the people that are saying they're no longer a super team, this for me is the watershed point, whereas if you don't beat the Packers, and I don't care, you can talk all you want about tough schedule. If you really think they are a Super Bowl team, they have to beat these teams to get into the playoffs. That's the kind of competition they have. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who the competition is. The thing you have to avoid is playing down to anybody that you should beat. You have to go in there and get pumped up and fired up and win these games, and then you can build your confidence, and then you can move forward and make some noise in the playoffs. So this is it. This is a huge deal, and I really feel like the fans are just missing out because they jumped off so mightily this week because of the Bears game. It's not your normal Packers week. It's really bizarre in that regard.
I think a holiday in there maybe is changing the energy a little too.
That could be.
Yeah.
Playing on the holiday, for crying out loud. Jeepers.
They're banged up. They are missing a key piece on the defensive line. Rodgers is obviously still not himself. They've had this weird rotational cast of wide receivers, the hyphen squad, I like calling them, with Equanimeous St. Brown and Marquez Valdez-Scantling, I think his name is.
You are correct, sir.
Who have both been very underwhelming, as much as they were kind of exciting in the preseason and they've made some big plays. They've really struggled to get separation, and essentially things are very, very hard for Aaron Rodgers right now. And he would have to be in kind of like late 2016, late 2014 God mode, and he just isn't.
And their coach is on the hot seat. I think if
finally,
deservedly so.
Yeah. I mean, he perpetually is. At least there's an underpinning of that. There has been the last few seasons, but every Packers fan that I know that's all they talk about. They hate that guy.
Yeah, they're in more desperate mode than the Vikings are, but not by much. I think you got to win this game to really feel confident about playing hard the rest of the season and putting in all the work, because everything goes south if you lose this game. So that's what the Packers going to be going for it. They got everything on the line to lose, and so do the Vikings. It should be a blast in the bank, in the world.
I should point out that Chad Greenway is hosting a tailgating event at Eric the Reds across the street from US Bank Stadium, starting around 5:15. And if you, it's kind of like a first come first serve thing. You don't need tickets or anything, as far as my understanding is. So I definitely would say to stop down there. I do believe that Nick Swartzen will be there because he is going to be guesting on Morning Joe's Friday morning. He's in town for the holiday, and he's going to the game Sunday night, and I told him about Greenway's thing. He's buddies with the Greenway, so I'm actually going to hang out with those guys for at least a minute or two on Sunday, which is terrifying. But I had a question that just popped in my head that I wanted to, it would have been fun if we did this at every, quarter of the season, but after, watching Monday night, and so on and so forth, I want to get on the record who we all think are going to go to the Super Bowl on both sides, AFC and NFC. And so I will go first.
I think we've just established anybody can.
Yeah. But I think it will be the Chiefs.
Cowboys, Chargers. Let's go.
The Raiders still have a chance? No,
I actually think they're mathematically eliminated by now.
Really?
Yeah, they have to be. They have one.
No, or maybe they won against Arizona and they're still in it or something like that.
Oh, they did, because Daniel Carlson hit that last-second field goal and said, "God is good."
AFC Special Teams Player of the Week. Kicking is chaos and entropy, and nothing matters.
You're right, and that bothers me.
It's such a great word. I love entropy. Such a good. Well done. Anyway, who's your pick, Joe?
Chiefs, and I got to go with the Rams.
Well, I was talking to John Ekstrom today, who's the PR guy for the Vikings, who's from Kansas City, big Chiefs fan, and we were talking about the game on Sunday night, and I said, I got to believe it's the Chiefs are going to be there, but I think the Saints will be there because they got a better defense than the Rams right now, and at least they're playing better. And you got to play a little defense to get there. So I think that those would be my picks.
Yeah, I just really quickly,
Vikings not going to be there. Then I pick the Saints.
I look at mainly how they played against the Vikings, and I didn't think the Vikings had ever really stopped that offense, whereas we know what happened in the Saints game. So that's kind of where my coin flip shows up.
I always think that when you're in your first time in the playoffs, you're at a bit of a disadvantage because it's just so different. Like we kind of saw that with the Rams last year. I, for one, cannot wait for our Rams-Saints NFC Championship. That will be a very fun time. I think I'm going to go Saints because I'm pretty sure they're going to be at home. I'm pretty sure they're going to get home field, and it's just hard to beat them in the Superdome, and they're the best version of themselves.
Especially up there in the Superdome in the playoffs. Sorry.
Yeah.
You think you
so
get
Saints, but curveball. I don't trust a quarterback in his first playoffs, and I don't trust Andy Reid in the playoffs. Saints Patriots.
Wow.
Nice.
That's definitely going to be the AFC Championship game, and that's going to be a really great game.
Maybe I could definitely see them being that 14-2, but get upset in the divisional round stunner type team. Like the 2011 Packers or like the Cowboys and the teams the Giants beat in 2007. Like these juggernauts that go down to some rando. I could totally see the Chiefs just randomly falling apart because they're the Chiefs, and it's Andy Reid.
Yeah, and he did what he had 3 interceptions on Monday night.
Yeah, young quarterback in the playoffs for the first time. Would not shock me at all to see him, stumble.
Ooh, that's a good one. What are the predictions for the... So, I think I go first again because I was right about the Vikings losing. Not that matters. Who won the score?
Well,
here's a fun thing. You tied.
What? I thought I at least got 2 or 3.
Both off by exactly 6. At the end, it was 20-25. Oberle was 24-23, off by 6, and Johnson was 18-21, off by exactly 6.
Wow.
All those Kirk Cousins garbage points burned you.
Yeah.
You learned that in the Big Ten.
So, you could go first since yours is already up, too.
Yeah, let's see. What do I say? I think the Vikings are the better team. I think they're at home. I think they were a little embarrassed last Sunday night on Sunday Night TV. I think they'll be ready to go. I think they'll try to find Kyle Rudolph this time around. They'll run the ball. The Packers are better at defending the pass than they are the run. So I think, but I don't want to preview my over/under pick. But that. I think they'll get the running game going, which they're definitely wanting to do, and I think they'll win 24-20.
Yeah, I think they're going to win because I think they realize that. I'm really hoping this will be the first example of them putting all 3 facets of the game together in the same game. I think Cousins' childhood hatred of Green Bay as a Bears fan will come through too. I'm going to give them 34-18 Vikings.
Ooh. It's a blowout.
Yeah, it should be a good one. I'm hoping it'll make up for that game that forever at TCF for my dad. If we got sweets at in Green Bay, he wouldn't go because of the experience we had, and they got just destroyed by the Packers there a couple years ago, so they gotta pay that back.
All right, so for over-unders, I would pick a win, too, if I were in part of this. I think they'll win. They're close enough. I think the Vikings are a little better, and they're also at home, so I feel pretty comfortable with that. So for the over-unders, recap last week, we had Diggs over 71.5 from scrimmage. He crushed that. Trubisky, 27.5 rushing. You won't be surprised to know that he beat that. And Cousins, 0.5 picks, he had 2. So all the overs got hit, which means all 3 of us were right. Similarly, people who were right, A West 1, who picked the Trubisky over. The Sports Crib 21, Justin Ekstrom, somebody I met at training camp, super nice dude. He picked the Diggs over. Menaxer, PJ Vikes, Tony Baumstark, Hawkeye Nation 319, Kyle St. Germain 7, Brad DV, the Vikings fan with a PH, the Groshim, the real Fornell, who's been playing the game all year, so thank you for your participation. Christopher Miller, who's been a follower of the site and I believe of the show as well for a long time. So thanks for listening. Alfred Payton 12, Alex B Vikings, Brooklanders, who goes by Jimmy Butler Stan account. Vikings Beast 228. We got a lot, boys. Licorice 5150, Jamie Ackley, Super Skull fan, friend of mine in LA. Josh Radzak, PP26 No 21. He's been playing the game all year. Jade Dizzle 35, C Grader 2, and Ek Irvin. That's a lot of guys. So, in terms of the actual raffle, the winner of a gnome this time is going to be Brad DV, who got it right. He picked the Cousins over. So at Brad DV, send us your information. We'll get you a gnome.
And that was a turnover over. My goodness.
I know it doesn't feel right.
No, it doesn't. But that's okay. He picked it. He gets it. Good pick.
Mm-hmm.
What are the overs for this week?
So I know we're up against time here, so I'll go quick. Dalvin over 57.5 rushing. Everson Griffin over 2.5 tackles. Aldrick Robertson over 20.5 receiving yards.
Ooh. Who goes first?
I think we get to go. I believe Oberly gets to go first again.
No, I won.
We all got it right, so whatever the order was last time.
Yeah, speaking of garbage time, Diggs.
Can you read it once more real quick? I'm sorry. I thought
Dalvin Cook over 57.5 rushing, so if he gets just 57, he doesn't hit the over. Everson Griffin over 2.5 tackles. Aldrick Robertson 20.5 receiving yards.
Dalvin Cook.
Yeah.
Over. I'm sorry, over on Dalvin. Yep.
Done.
I'll take the under on Robinson.
Okay. Excellent. You didn't. I'm taking the under on Dalvin.
Ooh.
Number Fire projected him at 57.5 rushing yards. Even though the Packers are a little banged up on defense, I don't think this team can run worth a dang.
He's got to break one. He's got to break 170-yarder.
That I was gonna take.
Be wrong.
Yeah, I was gonna take the over because I thought that might happen too. Just one. Well, that's all we need is one. As I mentioned, Nick Swartzen will be on Morning Joe's Friday morning at 9:30, and then hopefully, if technology works, Sunday night after the game will be the first new episode of About the Labor, which is the main podcast for Vikings territory. Yeah, and it has a new host. It's under new management. That host happens to be Luke Braun, and
There you go, bro.
we would have had technology worked after the Bears game. It wouldn't have been a very happy game, but it would have, or a happy show, but it would have been a show. So hopefully we'll have that ironed out.
I wonder if Luke will ever invite us on his cast. I don't know.
I'm already permanently banned, but I couldn't be more excited that show is back, and we have the best host in the game, me notwithstanding. So check it out. Thanks to everyone for listening. Thank you for all the support. It's Thanksgiving, and I know I can speak for everyone here. We're all extremely thankful for all the support that you guys give us. You allow us to pursue the things that we love, and that's amazing. So thank you to everyone listening, and thank you, Luke and Joe, for this. We've been doing this for a couple years now, and I really enjoy it. You guys are the best, and I'm lucky that I found you.
Thanks, Joe. You too, buddy. Right back at you.
And nothing but icy sounds from Luke. This is how it always goes.
I was writing down things for the points competition, but yes, I echo these thoughts. This has been really awesome.
Everyone be safe. I guess the roads are crazy somewhere else because everyone's drunk, so be careful. And we will be back
safe
next week.
Night.
But yeah, and fly safe too, Mr. Braun. This has been the Purple Journal Podcast. Skol! And gobble gobble.